So welcome to the latest video on 116 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the practice paper of 2023, the higher set 3 paper 3, which is a calculator paper. Now as always I'll include a question breakdown so you can see which question refers to which topic. So let's get started on this practice paper of 2023, higher set 3 paper 3, which is a calculator paper. So looking at question 1, it says rearrange, and we've got this equation here. Now hopefully you would have spotted that if we turn this into a triangle, which you should be familiar with, and just label the positions here. We want to make C the subject, so C equals, and it's going to be B over A. For question 2, we want to write 0.00478 in standard form. So we write this as a number between 1 and 10, so that's going to be 7.8. And then I just then need to count the zeros at the front, which is 3, and it's a smaller number, so it's going to be 7.8 times 10 to the power of minus 3. For question 2b, we just want to enter this on our calculator, and if you've entered it correctly, you should have, well, it'll probably come up in ordinary form, and then we then want to convert this into standard form, so it's going to be 2.4 times 10 to the power of 5. Moving on to question 3, it says that a spinner lands on red, blue or green. The relative frequency after 400 spins are shown. How many more times did it land on red then green? So for this, what we need to do is first of all find out how many times did it land on red. So here I multiply the probability by the number of spins. So it's going to be 0.35 multiplied by 400, in which I get an answer of 140. Then I want to work out how many there were for green, so I do exactly the same, but this time it's going to be 0.15 times 400, and then enter on my calculator, get 60, and then I just want to work out the difference, which is 80. For question 4, it says a solid shape is made with a cube and a cylinder. The cube has an edge of 4 centimeters, the cylinder has a diameter of 4 centimeters and a height of 2 centimeters. And the question is asking me to draw the front elevation of the grid. So looking at the front, well, that's going to be this here, because that's the front, this is the side, and this is the plan. So then from this we can then see that the front is going to be a 4x4 square with another rectangle which is going to represent the cylinder. So it should look something like this, but obviously it'll be neatly drawn with a ruler. Then moving on to question 4b, it then says draw a front and side view. So this is going to be the front and this is going to be the side. So looking at this, the front view is going to be a 4x4 with a 2x4 rectangle in the middle. So it should look like this. Now again, the spacing of this needs to be accurate, but it could be anywhere on the grid. And then the side view is going to be a 4x4 square. And then what you'll then need to do is get your compass and draw a circle with a radius of 2. So let me just first of all sort out the vertical height. And then like so, and then put that in the middle, and it should look something like this, but obviously yours will be hopefully a lot more accurate than mine and drawn with correct maths equipment. Moving on to question 5, it says that here is a formula of S equals 5t squared, and S is the distance in meters a ball falls when dropped. T is the time taken in seconds. So the question is asking that the ball is dropped 1.2 seconds later, it hits the floor. What is the distance the ball falls? So here we're looking at T equaling 1.2. So I'm going to substitute this value into this formula. So I've got S equals 5 multiplied by 1.2 squared. Type that into my calculator and I get an answer of 7.2. For question B, it says the different ball is dropped from 2 meters above the ground. Work out the time taken for this ball to hit the floor. So this time we know that S, don't know what's happened there. So here we know that s equals 2. So if I substitute that in, I get 2 equals 5t squared. So 2 over 5 equals t squared. So t equals the square root of 2/5. And if I type that into my calculator, I should end up with an answer rounded up to 1.6. And I think on the calculator it's 32455 something. So rounded is 0.6 to 1 decimal place. And I don't want to write plus or minus because I can't have negative time. So again, my answer is going to be positive. Then moving on to question 6, it says the distance time graph shows the journey of a toy car. For how long is the toy stationary? So it's going to be stationary during this time here, and the time difference is going to be 7 take away 4, and that's going to be 3 seconds. The next question then says work out the average speed for the last 5 seconds of the journey. So what the question is asking me is to work out the gradient of this line here. Now to work out the gradient, so speed equals distance divided by time, and this is for part B. So looking at this, the distance in the last 5 seconds is 10 take away 3, which is 7, and the time taken in the last 5 seconds is going to be 5. So the speed is going to be 7 divided by 5, and that's 1.4, and that's in meters per second. Then for question 7, it says here is a rectangle and a T-shape made from 2 rectangles, and it says show using algebra that the rectangle and the T-shape have the same area. So for this, if I work out the area of the rectangle, and I do that by multiplying the height and the length, the width, so that's going to be 7 lots of x plus 1, which expanded and simplified is 7x plus 7. Then if I work out the area of the T-shape, well, this area here is going to be 2 lots of 2x plus 5 plus the area of B, which is going to be 3 lots of x minus 1. And if I expand the brackets, I get 4x plus 8 plus 3x minus 3. And that's, I know I've put 8 there, that should be a 10. And then if I simplify, I get 7x plus 7. And as you can see, these two things are the same. So therefore, same area. Moving on to question 8, it says that use a ruler and a compass for this question. A wind turbine needs to be positioned so that it's closer to port Y than port X, and it's less than 12 kilometers from X. So for this point here, what I need to do is I need to do a perpendicular bisector between X and Y. And for this, I need to draw a circle with a radius of, now if 1 centimetre represents 2 kilometres and it's got to be 12 kilometres, then I'm going to be drawing a radius of 6 centimetres. So if I do that, now let me just talk you through how we do a perpendicular bisector. Now for this, with your compass, you need to draw 2 circles so that it is more than halfway of the distance. So if I just make that a little bit bigger, and so I'm drawing a circle of Y around X, then I do the same with the center of Y, and again making sure that you're not adjusting your compass. The size of these 2 circles need to be the same, and like so that's the center, and this one's been shifted, so let me just move that back and work it out to be about there. And then where you should find is that those 2 circles or arcs should intersect. So if I use a different color, what I then want to do is draw a line through those intersection points. So anywhere along that line is going to be equidistant from X and Y. Then what I then want to do is I then want to measure a circle of 5 centimeters from X. Let me do that in a different colour. And so if I just imagine that that is 5 centimetres, and let me just label that. And that has messed that up. And again, doing loci on the computer, not ideal. Like so. So let's just assume that that blue circle has got a radius of 6 centimetres. So I want the right hand side of the line, but I want inside the blue circle, so it's going to be this region here. And again, just make sure that your shading is correct, and we're going to label that as R. So it's this region here. Then moving on to question 9, it says here is a frequency table of the times taken to solve a puzzle, and it says which interval contains the median. Well, the median is going to be halfway of the total frequencies, because it's going to be the 50th person. So then using community of frequency, where is that 50th person going to be? Well, the first 38 is between 0 and 1. The next 16 is in 1 to 2, and that is where our median is going to be. So it's this block here. Then it says for question 10, it says an electrician charges an hourly rate plus a fixed charge per job. If an electrician does a 4-hour job, they earn £185, and if an electrician does a 6-hour job, they earn £265. Work out the hourly rate and fixed charge. So what this is simultaneous equations. So looking at this first situation, is they've worked 4H plus the call out charge, which I'm just going to call C, and they earn £185. Then for this second statement, they've done 6 hours and a standing charge, and they've earned 265. Now if I do a bit of rearranging, so if I do 6H plus C equals 265 and 4H plus C equals 185, I can see that my C's are the same and they're both the same sign, so I take away. So 2 hours is going to be 265, take away 185, and that gives me 80. So H equals 40. So then from this, what I can then do is, knowing that H equals 40, if I take this line here, and I've got 4 lots of 40 plus C equals 185, so 160 plus C equals 185, so C equals 185 minus 160, and that comes up to 25. So the fixed charge is going to be £25, which, to be honest, is relatively cheap. Moving on to question 11, it says here are 2 shapes that are similar, and the question is asking us to work out X. So here, first thing we need to work out is the scale factor, in which I'll use 12 and 8. So it's going to be 12 divided by 8, and I can simplify it, which is going to be 3. Let me write that bit properly. So I get 3 over 2, so all 1.5. So then to work out X, I'm going from the small shape to the big shape. So X equals 6 times the scale factor, and that's going to give me an answer of 9 centimetres. Moving on to question 12, it says that a tank is filled with water at a constant rate. The tank is a cuboid with a height of 80 centimetres. The tank is full after 15 minutes, and it says CETA sketches this graph to show the depth of the water during the 15 minutes. Make 2 criticisms of CETA's graph. So along this, what you should find is that there's no numbers on, or units I should say, on the vertical axes, if I can spell it, or at least write a bit clearer, on the vertical axis. And also the next one is that it should be a straight line graph, because it's at a constant rate, so it should be a straight line, in other words, or a linear line they would accept. Then moving on to question 13, it says some adults and children complete a challenge. Here is some information about the time taken in minutes for adults. And the question is asking us to complete or to draw a box plot with this information. Now this should be relatively straightforward because the 5 bits of information I need to draw a box plot has actually been given to me, which is really nice. So here the lowest value is at 14, so each little box represents 2. So I'm going to draw a line there at 14. I then draw another line at 82. Which is then, again, you should be using a ruler, but again, just to save a bit of time on the video, I'm not going to do that. And then the lower quartile is at 26. And the upper quartile is at 72. And the median's at 52. So it's there. And then you just want to join the lower quartile with the upper quartile and then draw your whiskers. So it should look something like that. So then moving on to question 13b, it says here is some information about the time taken in minutes for the children. Median's 57, the interquartile's 41. Who was more consistent in the time taken to complete the challenge? So for this, more consistent is basically looking at a smaller IQR. So here, if we look at the adults IQR, and that's going to be the upper quartile, which was 72, minus the lower quartile, which was 26. And if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 46. And for the children, it was 41. So 41 is less than 46. So the correct answer is children. Moving on to question 14, it says that Annette picks a 3-digit odd number. The first digit is less than 4, the second digit is greater than 5, and it says how many different numbers could she pick? Well, looking at the first digit, well, if it's a 3-digit number, it can't start with 0 because otherwise it'd be a 2-digit number. So the possible numbers for it to be a first digit, and it's got to be less than 4, is going to be 1, 2, or 3. So there's 3 options they could have there. For the second digit, it's got to be greater than 5, and just spell digit correctly. There we go. Then for the second digit, well, that can be, it's got to be greater than 5, so that can be 6, 7, 8, or 9. So there's 4 possible options. And then the third digit, with it being have to be an odd number, means it's got to end in a 1, 3, a 5, a 7, or a 9. So there's 5 possible combinations. So then to work out the total number of combinations, I've just got to do 3 times 4 times 5, which gives me an answer of 60. Moving on to question 15, it says here is a diagram of a pack of rice, and it says that Gahade has a daily allowance of 2,000 calories. She says that one serving gives more than 5% of my daily allowance. Is she correct? Well, let's have a look to see if it is. So I'll do my working out on the screen so you can see it. Now again, this is just one possible way of doing this particular question. There are going to be many more, but as long as you come with the same conclusion and you do proving it correctly mathematically, you'll be fine to get the full marks. So let's first of all work out 5% of 2,000 of her daily allowance. So 5% of 2,000 is 100 calories. So the next thing we want to do is then work out how many calories there are in one serving. So let's put number of calories in one serving. So to do that, first of all, I need to work out, well, what's the weight in one serving? So the weight is going to be 490 divided by 7, and if I type that into my calculator, I get 70 grams per serving. I then want to work out, well, how many calories there's going to be. Well, again, this is a very typical labeling on food products in supermarkets where they give you per 100 grams. So here we're going to work out the number of calories there are. So the number of calories in one serving is going to be the ratio, which is 130 divided by 100, and we're going to multiply that by the weight in one serving, which is 70. And if I type that into my calculator, I get 91 calories in one serving. So as 91, so the next question then says one serving gives more than 5%. So here, as 91 is less than 100, the answer is going to be no. And we can say no, it is less. So that's just one way of doing it. The next question then says, question 16 moves on to quadratics. So we want to use completing the square to write it in this form. So here I set up my format, and the number inside the bracket is always going to be the half the coefficient of x, so that's going to be plus 5, plus 28, and then I always subtract the number inside the bracket squared. So that's going to be 5 squared, so that's x plus 5 plus 28 minus 25, which gives me my final answer of x plus 5 squared plus 3. The next question then says write down the coordinates of the turning point. Well, the turning point, the x coordinate will always be the value of x that makes that bracket equal to 0. So that's going to be minus 5. And then when x is 0, what is that completing square going to be? Well, it's going to be positive 3. For question 17, it says a, b and c are positive integers. A to b is 79 and b to c is 12 to 5. Work out the smallest possible value of a, b, c. A plus b plus c rather. So for this, what I need to do is to try and combine these ratios so I can have a to b to c. So if this is 7 to 9 and this ratio b to c is 12 to 5, then what I want to do is I want to try and have the same number in the middle. So to have that as same number, the lowest common multiple between 12 and 9 is 36. So if I multiply this by 4 and this one by 3, I get 28 to 36, and I'm going to get 36 to 15. So then the smallest possible numbers where a and b and c are positive integers is going to be 28, 36 and 15. So the smallest value is going to be 28 plus 36 plus 15, which gives me an answer of 79. Moving on to question 18, it says prove 5n minus 2n plus 3 multiplied by n plus 1 is always negative. So let's first of all expand this out. So I've got 5n minus, and then I'm going to end up with 2n squared plus 5n plus 3. Then taking this bracket out and with the negative, I end up with 5n minus 2n squared minus 5n minus 3. Now in terms of simplifying this, the 5n's cancel out, so what I'm left with is minus 2n squared minus 3. Now what I want to do is then show that this is negative. Well, n squared, so as n squared is always going to be a number that's less or equal to 0, it's always going to be positive. So then minus 2 times n squared is going to be a negative multiplied by a positive, which always gives me a negative answer. So that means then, if I then do, in terms of my conclusion, a negative number minus 3 will always be a negative number. Another alternative you could have done is with this, what I could have done is then taken a common factor of minus 1, and in which then I've got 2n squared plus 3. Well, this is always going to be negative, and that's always going to be positive, and a negative times a positive is always going to give a negative answer. So that would be another way of working with this question. The next question then says use iteration and to work out the approximate solution to this, starting with x plus 1. So on your calculator, if I enter x1 equals 1, then what we then want to do, and then press equals on your calculator, then the function you want to type in is press your square root button, then press 2, bracket ands plus 4, all divided by 5, and make sure that's all in the square root, and then press equals. So then you get your x2 value, which is going to be 1.095445115. x3 is going to be 1.112734449. Now, with these iteration questions, I would always strongly recommend you do write down the first couple. Now, you don't need to write all the digits. You can just write the first couple and then write ... which will be absolutely fine. Then what you want to do is keep pressing equals until the numbers stop changes, and when it stops changing, it then becomes, so the final answer is where it's 1.116515139, and then you want to round that up to 2 decimal places, giving us a final answer of 1.12, and that's to 2 decimal places. Moving on to question 20, it says the diagram shows a vertical tower CD and a height of h meters. ABC is horizontal, A to B is 25, and the question is asking us to work out the height of h of the tower. Well, first things first, I can then work out what this angle is because I know it's a straight line. So I do 180 minus 139, which is 141. I can then work out what angle this is going to be by angles in a triangle out to 180, and I work out that this angle here is going to be 8. So then from this, what I can then do is I can then work out what this length here is going to be. So if I take that triangle out, and let me just do a little sketch, I get this is 31, this is x, this is 8, and this is 25. So to work this, I'm going to use the sine rule. So it's going to be x over sine 31 equals 25 over sine 8. Do a bit of cross multiplying, and I get x sine 8 equals 25 sine 31. So x equals 25 sine 31 divided by sine 8. And if I type that into my calculator, let me do that now. So 25 sine 31 divided by sine 8. And I get an answer of 92.517532237. So that's what this length here is. So then if I then take that right angle triangle, and I know that this angle is 39, this length here is 92.5175. Let's leave it as that. And I want to work out what this length here is. Although it's called h, we tend to write h as the hypotenuse, and we don't want to get confused, so I'm just going to call it x here. Or we can actually, we've already used x, so let me call that y. So then from this, we can use SOHCAHTOA trig. So this is the opposite, this is the hypotenuse. So it's going to be using sine. So I've got sine 39 equals h or o or y over 92.5175, which technically is still on my calculator. So y equals 92.5175 multiplied by sine 39. So if I multiply that by sine 39, I get an answer of y or h equals 58.2231 blah blah blah. So I'm going to round that up to 58.2, and that's in meters, and that's to 1 decimal place. Moving on to question 21, it says that a lorry is able to carry a maximum load of 15,000 kilograms to 2 sig fig. Mike loads the lorry with a container weighing 2,800 kilograms, correct, to 2 sig fig, and he says the lorry could be carrying more than 20% of its maximum load. Is he correct? So for this, what we want to look at is the worst case scenario. So let's first of all work out the upper and lower bounds. So of the lorry, it's going to be 15,000 plus or minus. Now 2 sig fig is 1,000, so I divide 1,000 by 2. So I'm going to be adding, subtracting 500. So that becomes 1, 4, 15500 and 15500. No, that's one more extra zero, so let's give it that. Then for the load, well, that's going to be 2,800, and that's been rounded to 2 sig fig, which represents 100. Half of 100 is 50, so I'm going to add and subtract 50, so it's going to be 2750, and it's going to be 2850. Now, worst case scenario, what we want is a light lorry and a maximum load. So let's have a look at this. So the worst case scenario is going to be using the lowest weight for the lorry and the maximum load. And I want to work that as a percentage. So it's going to be 2850 divided by 14500. I'm going to multiply that by 100, in which then I get 19.6%. So as 19.6% is less than 20%, the answer is going to be no. Moving on to question 22, it says that a bag contains 20 sweets, 12 are green, 5 are orange and 3 are black. 2 sweets are taken from the bag at random without replacement. Work out the probability of picking one orange sweet. So this question here is going to be a probability tree question. So let me just zoom out so we've got enough room. So looking at the first pick, we've got 3 options. So we've got green, we've got orange, and we've got black. Then on the second pick, it can be any of those 3, so G, O, B, and then I've got G, O, B, and then for the next one, G, O, B. Then working out the probabilities, well, the first one I'm picking out 20, so it's 12 over 20, 5 over 20, and 3 over 20. And then with the replacement on the second pick, I'm only going to have 19 sweets. So then I've already picked a green one, so that's going to be 11. I've still got all the orange ones left, so that's going to be 5 out of 19. Then I've still got all the black ones, so that's going to be 3 over 19. Then moving on to when I pick an orange one. Green, I've got all of them, so that's going to be 12 over 19. Orange, I've already picked one, so that's going to be 4 over 19. Orange and black, that's going to be, still got all black ones, so that's going to be 3 over 19. Then picking a black one first. Green, I've got all of them, so that's going to be 12 over 19. Orange, got all of them, so that's going to be 5 over 19. Black, I've already taken one, so that's going to be 2 over 19. Then picking up the outcomes, I've got GG, GO, GB, OG, OO, OB, and then BG, BO, and BB. Now, out of those columns, which ones have only got one O? So it's going to be this one, that one, that one, or that one. Now, working out each of these probabilities, I multiply, so that's going to be 12 over 20 multiplied by 5 over 19. This one's going to be 5 over 20 multiplied by 12 over 19. This one's going to be 5 over 20 multiplied by 3 over 19. And this one here is going to be 3 over 20 multiplied by 5 over 19. Now, I'm not going to simplify any of these because if it was on a non-calculator, it would make it easier if I didn't simplify at this stage, although the numbers will be smaller. However, it's entirely up to you. So you can simplify with it not being on a calculator, it'll do it automatically for you. But that's going to be 60, that's going to be 60, this is going to be 15, and this is going to be 15. So it could be any of those. So I then want to add these probabilities together. Now, by not simplifying and all the denominators being the same, it's going to be a lot easier for me to write them all down. So only one orange is going to be 15 plus 15 plus 60 plus 60 all over 380, and that's going to be 150 over 380, which is 15 over 38, and there's my final answer. And if you were working with decimals, you could do, so it's 15 divided by 38, which is 0.39 to 2 decimal places. There we go. Then moving on to question 23, it says Reda has a bicycle with a punctured tyre. She tries to pump up the punctured tyre. The graph shows the pressure in pounds per square inch of the tyre over 5 minutes. And the question's saying by drawing a tangent, work out the rate at which the tyre pressure is increasing after 1 minute. So what we need to do is find where 1 is, which is here. And then what we then want to do is draw a tangent of that line. So if I draw a tangent, and let me just, now this is going to be ridiculously difficult on the computer, but what you want to do is just draw a diagonal where it touches that point at 1 point. So imagine it's like balancing, and I might have to do this freehand, but because I haven't got a ruler to do it on the screen, this is going to be extremely tedious. Now, with these tangent questions, you need to make sure that one, you're drawing a tangent. You have to draw a tangent at this point. You have to mark the point, which I've done here. And then what you then want to do is then using the scale is then work out what they're going to be. So generally speaking, looking at this, I'm going for, well, if I extend that line, it's going to mess up the there. But we want to do is make your life a little bit easier in terms of how you're doing it. So if I just rub out these horizontal green ones. So what I've done is I've made the vertical line easy for me to count because that's going to be 10 seconds, and the width the pressure is 10. But then working out the time, that's going to be a little bit more awkward. And with this, I get an answer of, let me just quickly count all those squares up, and I get roughly round about 0.8 squares. So then if I then do, so the gradient is going to be 10 divided by 0.8, and if I do that on my calculator, I get an answer of around about 12.5. But roughly speaking, the correct answer in the mark scheme is a number between 11.8 to 12.1. However, they would accept or the correct gradient of the line drawn. So any of those, although I get 12.5, it's outside this region that's on the mark scheme, but because I've drawn a tangent at 1, I would get full marks for that question. Moving on to question 24, which is our last question. It says, here is a triangle ABC. Describe the single transformation of the triangle for which all points AB are invariant and there are no other invariant points. So basically what this means is that A and B does not move. So if that is the case, then what the transform shape is going to look like is going to look like this. So how do I describe that unshaded triangle to the green triangle? Well, that's going to be a reflection of on the line x equals 1, or you could say AB would be absolutely fine for the 1 mark. Then for our last question, it says that here is an L shape PQ or STU. Describe fully one single transformation of the L shape for which Q is invariant, so it doesn't move. The line joining Q and P becomes horizontal and the area of L does not change. So PQ is this line here. Now we want to make that horizontal. So either that line could be here or that line could be here. Now if it's on the green line, then what the shape is going to look like, it's going to look like this. So the correct answer is going to be the green shape, in which if that is the case, then it's going to be a reflection on, or rotation I should say, not reflection, because because it can't be a reflection even though it looks like it, because if it's a reflection then PQ is going to stay vertical, which we don't want it to be. So if it's the green one, it's going to be a rotation, and we could say it's a 90-degree anti-clockwise with center 1, 1, or we could say Q. You can also say that it's a rotation 270 degrees clockwise with center 1, 1, or Q. Now we could also say that as Q is not changed, we could also go for where the transform shape is this pink shape here, in which then we could say that again it's going to be a rotation and it's going to be 90 degrees clockwise with center 1, 1, or Q. Or you could say that it's a rotation 270 degrees anti-clockwise with center 1, 1, or Q. Now it can be either of those and you'll get the 2 marks for it. So although this seems like lots of different answers, technically as long as you're saying rotation, you get away with saying 90 degrees or 270. You won't, although you're not going to get anti-clockwise or clockwise incorrect, because technically if it's the green or the pink L shape, it's still going to be correct in terms of the rules that they've set in the question.